I haven't done a live on YouTube in a long time. Yeah. Hey everybody. So you're in the new Abingdon Coast spot. You have not seen this yet before. This is the new location in downtown Las Vegas, and I was live yesterday on Instagram. Today I'm going to be live on YouTube. We're getting ready to reintroduce a very special watch, and I'm here with my dad. Say hello, Dad.
Hello.
You can hear him in the background. And I am going to be packing up steel pennies. So if you are tuning in and you want to see why I'm packing up steel pennies at a watch company, then stick around. But I'm really excited for this because it's a long time coming. So I've got some tunes in the background. We're going to pack up a few things here. And let's jump into it. And then I'm going to probably start packing up some boxes. So what is the deal? Why am I doing this? If you've been following the company for a while, last year, April, introduced a brand new watch. And this watch is made in honor of the WASP, the Women Air Force Service Pilots from World War II. If you don't know who they are, I'll go into them and their story here, because it is an absolutely incredible story. But this watch has been sold out, since June of last year, and we are getting it back in stock. So I am super excited about that because I know a lot of you have done pre-orders and you want your watch, and I don't blame you. I want to get you your watch. So we have all the final assembly done here in Las Vegas at our location. And what we're doing right now, or what I'm doing, because it's on a Sunday and I want to make sure that we don't delay anything with relation to getting the watches out this week, is I am going to be packing up a few of the little accoutrements that come with this watch. So what I'm doing here is I am poking out the coin holders. So this is going to go in here like so, and then we're going to punch out two of the inner circles so that the penny will fit. So what's the deal with the penny? So the WASP, the Women Air Force Service Pilots from World War II, were a contracted group that didn't get veteran recognition until the 70s, which was super sad. But they did all the non-combat flying in World War II. What that means is they did all of the ferry flying, the delivery flying. They would train the people, the men, on how to fly B-25s, P-51s, all of those old World War II vintage airplanes that you love and adore. These women were hired, and they trained in Texas, Sweetwater, Texas, and they wanted to help the war effort in whatever way they could. Now, these were already existing pilots, so keep in mind that is something that a lot of people don't realize, that they already knew how to fly, and they knew how to fly very well. So that is the story of the WASP. They were hired guns, they did all that flying, and they didn't get recognized as veterans until later on. And what we did last year on the 80-year anniversary of the WASP program is we made a WASP watch. It sold out so quickly. Did not expect that, very happy about it, but what it meant was that people started pre-ordering it and they didn't have an opportunity to get it until much later. And we're talking, these are orders from June. So we've been tirelessly working on producing more. We produce them here in the United States, in Las Vegas, and we have a whole batch coming in the mail, part of it coming in the mail on Tuesday. I've been watching that tracking number like a hawk. It is due here on Tuesday, so if you follow us on Instagram, you saw the live yesterday where I made, let me show you because they're right here. I made a whole bunch of watch straps, and this is them. So this is for the silver WASP watch. We also did some for the two-tone WASP watch, which is a chestnut leather chestnut leather band, and it has a gold buckle. And we've got 3 versions of the WASP watch. There is a two-tone, there is a silver, and there is a new gunmetal that just got debuted at the Sun and Fun Air Show last week. So these pennies here, if you can kind of see, they are not your typical penny. 1943, pennies were made out of steel. And the reason why they were made out of steel is because the war effort needed copper and nickel for supplies and for raw materials. So 1943 was a big year for coin collectors because it's one of the few years that you're going to have pennies made out of steel. Now, mind you, there are a few pennies that are out there that are made from copper and nickel before they reverted to steel. If you ever get one of those in your possession, they're worth about $100 grand. So that's a very valuable penny. So hopefully you find one in your lifetime, but there's not many of those. Some number on some website said that there was like less than 100 of those. So what we have here are steel pennies. And steel pennies represent, in 1943, it was the middle of the program for the WASP program. The WASP program was 1942 to 1944. And the women Air Force service pilots from World War II would go and train at Avenger Field in Sweetwater, Texas. Their anniversary is coming up at the end of the year, the end of the month. And at the end of the month in Sweetwater, Texas, they're going to have a big homecoming. So if you know anything about the military, homecomings are when a particular squadron or group of the military will all get together and celebrate and reconnect. And so that is happening at the end of the month. If you have the opportunity to go, it is open to the public. You can definitely attend a WASP homecoming. It is the end of the month. I want to say it's like April 28th, 29th. It's at Sweetwater, Texas at Avenger Field where the WASP trained. And it's honestly a really cool event. You get to meet some World War II pilots. You get to meet current pilots. I've met some Thunderbirds and Blue Angels and different people that have attended over the years. It's a really fun event. But why the penny? So here's why the penny. When the WASP would show up at Sweetwater, at Avenger Field to start their training, you see there was around 30,000 women who attempted to get into this program. Only 1,102 went through the program. So that's how many watches we made. We made 1,102 watches, one for each WASP. And these pennies, there's going to be one included with every watch. So when we ship these out beginning Tuesday or Wednesday, each one is going to have a penny with it. And when these women would get off the bus in 1942, 1943, and 1944, because that's when they had this program, that's where they were training, there was a wishing well. And there was a wishing well at the airport at Avenger Field. And it's still there today. This wishing well is still there. So what these women would do when they got off the bus in the 40s, before their flight training, they would take a penny and they would toss it in the wishing well and wish for the war to end. They'd wish for happy landings. They'd wish to get through training. They'd wish to, be able to help serve their country in whatever capacity they could. And that is why we have a 1943 penny included with every watch, because each of these watches represent one of the WASP. I only made 1,102 of these watches because there were only 1,102 WASP who went through the program. And I would have to say that making the watch was the easiest part. Finding the pennies, though, that was tricky. But there's a fun story about that. So, fun fact, my uncle, he was a veteran. He was born in 1943. Now, he was a Vietnam vet. Part of the decoders from Vietnam, if you know those men's story. And all his life, because he was born in 1943, he has collected 1943 pennies. So when he found out that I was making this watch for the WASP in honor of these women, he found all his pennies, because he had a collection of them, and he gave them to me. How cool is that? So the WASP pennies that come with this watch are from my uncle, which I think that's really neat. Uncle Ronnie, you are awesome. Thank you. So that is the story of the pennies. And this, what I'm doing right now, is I am putting each penny into a capsule, because each watch box that this watch comes in also comes with a 1943 steel penny. They are collector's items, both the watch as well as the penny, so definitely cherish it. But it is such a fun story. This whole watch, I've never made a watch with such a story. And to commemorate these legends, these women who were flying all the non-combat flying in World War II, it just really warms my heart. As a pilot myself, these are the women who really kind of set the stage for me to be able to fly as easily as I've been able to today. I never joined the military, so I didn't go that road, but even civilian flying is always very influenced by military flying. And these women, they fought their ass off to be able to give their skill set, and it was years into the war before they were finally allowed to be able to fly and provide their services. So if you think about these women, the WASP had been flying for decades. You know, they were flying since the early 1920s, which is when Amelia Earhart was kind of in her prime, and you know, the early 1910s, all these women were flying powder puff derbies, and they were showing off their skills as aerobatic pilots and race pilots and all these different things. And so they knew how to fly already. And yet when the war broke out in 1943, the war broke out much earlier than that, but when the war broke out, they said, hey, use us for whatever you can. We want to be able to help. And the military was like, nah, you're all right. We're using the guys. But if you want to be nurses, feel free, go ahead. And they're like, no, we can aid in flying. We can do whatever kind of flying you want. And the military just kept saying, no, 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 no. Well, it wasn't until 1942 that Jackie Cochran was able to convince the military to say, hey, we do have very capable pilots. There's over, tens of thousands of women who know how to fly. And why don't you use us for anything that is non-combat? So don't send us to war, because you're not going to do that. We already know that. But you send women into the war for nursing, for other types of services, and spies and whatnot. And so why don't you send us to do all the non-combat flying? And that's what happened. They were allowed to ferry airplanes. They were allowed to pick up airplanes from the factories, Douglas factory and the Beechcraft factory and those types of places, Wichita, Kansas, Oklahoma, and then Santa Monica, believe it or not. That was where one of the Douglas factories were. And then they trained the men on how to fly as well. They were flight instructors. They also did something which was really crazy, I found out. They towed artillery practice, or artillery targets behind their planes, just like a banner towed. And the men would practice shooting at the artillery, at the practice. So they did artillery practice. They would shoot at the banners. And I spoke to one WASP, because there are still a few that are alive today. They're all in their hundreds. And one woman, that's what she did. Her name is Nell. She lives up in Salt Lake City. And when we came out with this watch, we gifted each of the remaining live WASPs a watch. And in talking to her and presenting it to her for her birthday, I said, what was some of the crazy stories that happened when you were doing this program? And she said, well, I do remember one time when we were towing artillery practice behind us, and the guys were just not on their game that day. And so they were shooting in front of us. We saw bullets coming in front of the plane as opposed to behind the plane. And so we told them, some tall tale, like we were low on fuel or something, and we had to stop that day. And we were gonna head back and figured if they could just practice on their own for a little bit and then we could come back the next day, then we would probably be better off. We'd probably be safer. And I'm just like sitting there with my jaw dropped, like, are you kidding me? This is what these women did. So if you know about the WASP and you know about the watch that we made, last year we debuted it at the 80-year homecoming. 2023 was the 80-year history of the program because it went from 1942 to 1944. And just hearing these stories and meeting these women, it was like, this is living history right now. So if you ever have an opportunity to meet a WASP, do so, because we've already lost 2 this year. They're all over 100 years old, and there's just not many of them left alive. And it's just, you know, I mean, these are women who did some incredible things. The other thing that is really fascinating, and it's kind of sad, is they were not recognized as veterans until the 70s. 1977, they were finally given veteran recognition. And way too late, but at least they were finally given some type of veteran recognition. But to not be able to be buried in a veteran ceremony, to not get veteran benefits, and I mean, it was said by one of the main generals during World War II that every aircraft that flew in World War II was touched by a WASP, either picked up, flown, instructed in, delivered with the banners, you know, the ammunition banners, towing banners behind them. They all hit, you know, they touched every kind of airplane that flew in World War II. And to only be considered as a contractor and not as a veteran until 30 plus years later is just, it's so sad. But we have about 10 of them still alive today. And they're scattered throughout the country. If you go to the homecoming at the end of the month, which is in Sweetwater, Texas, at Avenger Field, where they trained, then you have an opportunity to meet them. And it is open to the public. So you are welcome to attend. Anybody is welcome to go. It's a huge party. It takes the whole weekend. They have, check out the National WASP Museum, World War II WASP Museum. They have got all the details, how to fly in. I flew in with a friend of mine. You might know her. She's a UFC fighter and she's also a pilot. Her name is Antonina Pantera. Her sister is very famous, Bullet Valentina, if you know who Valentina is. Antonina and I flew out in her 172 and attended the homecoming a couple years ago and just had an absolute blast. It was so much fun to hang out with these women, to talk to them, hear their stories, get photos with them, and take rides. They have rides in lots of different airplanes from that era. It's a good time. It's a good time had by y'all. So that was when we debuted this watch last year. It's 1 year later and we haven't sold out, thank God. There's still some left. We only made 1,102 of these because there were only 1,102 WASP who went through the program. If you see the details on this watch, you'll see that on the dial there is the number 38. That's the only number on the dial, and it's in honor of the 38 WASP who died in service. You'll also see that each watch comes with a steel penny. And the steel penny is because there was a wishing well at the airport where they trained in Sweetwater, Texas at Avenger Field. And when they got off the bus, right before their training would begin, or it wasn't always training, it was often interviewing, so they would try to, if they got through training, they got into the program. If they didn't, they washed out, then they were gone, they were sent back home. But what they would do when they got off the bus is they would take a coin and toss it into that wishing well and wish for happy landings, wish for, to get through training, wish for the war to end, all those different kinds of things. So what we're doing is we're including a 1943 steel penny. And it was a steel penny because they needed copper and nickel for the war effort. So pennies in the 40s were made out of steel. So this is one of the steel pennies from 1943. Probably the hardest part of putting together this whole package was finding that many pennies. But thanks to my uncle, I was able to do so. So So yeah, so that is the deal. And we do all the final assembly here in Las Vegas. And yesterday on Instagram Live, what I was doing was I was making all of the straps for the watch. We were putting buckles on certain straps because I've got a huge shipment of movements and cases coming in on Tuesday. So when we do that final assembly, we're going to put them all together. We'll put the band on, we'll put the box together, we'll put the penny in, and we'll get them out the door. For those that have pre-ordered this watch, we are shipping orders that came in as early as June, I believe. So I know your patience has been so appreciated. We've got them coming in the mail to you very, very, very soon. So I'm very happy about that because this has been a long time coming, and we just didn't expect to sell out so quickly. But it's a good problem to have, and honestly, if you're a really good customer and you understand that it takes time to make good quality products, then you have no problem with it. So I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your just working with us. And once I get these next movements and cases in and everything, I think we can catch up everybody that has placed pre-orders since June. And then after that, we should be pretty good. We should be able to keep up with the demand. So I'm hoping that the pre-order situation that we've had over the last 7 months will not be how it'll be later on, and that we can ship out once an order comes in and get you a watch. So I just did the rest of the 1943 pennies that my uncle gave me. These all are, let's see, I've got 10, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here, but I still have a bunch of pennies behind me, so I'm gonna go grab those pennies and do some more with you. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments, and I will be happy to answer. Let's see here. So I know it's been a while since I've done a live, and excuse me. And so I do plan on getting back into live. Sorry for all the shakiness here. Because I really, really enjoyed them. When I was doing all the YouTube lives, it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of people tuning in and asking some really good questions, especially how to start a microbrand. And I didn't even realize that back in 2006, 2007, when I started the microbrand, that's what it was. I was just starting a watch company, and I didn't know they had a name for it. So it wasn't until a couple years ago that somebody was telling me, hey, you own a microbrand, or you own an independent brand. And I was like, what are you talking about? So that was news to me. But it turns out that there's a lot of people on YouTube who want to start their own microbrand. And one of my probably most popular videos that I've done is how to start a microbrand. So here we go. We've got a bunch of new pennies. Let's see here. Dump these in here, and then we'll get them in their holders. So if you guys want me to do more how to start a microbrand, I am more than happy to do so. Once we get this new place built out, which should be in the next few months, then we'll start getting some more videos going. So tell me what kind of videos you want me to do on YouTube, and I will, because I know on Instagram we do things a little bit different, on TikTok we do things a little bit different, and on YouTube it seems that people love our blogs and people love our how-tos. So if you want to see more of that kind of stuff, I am more than happy to provide all of that. So right now, what you guys are joining me on is building out the steel pennies from 1943 that we include with the WASP watch, because the WASP watch is about to be delivered again. And I am very, very excited about it because you guys have been so patient in ordering these ahead of time. It's a pre-order right now on the website. We're shipping out as quickly as we possibly can. However, if you are pre-ordering it now, if you place an order on the watch, like we had another one ordered yesterday, it's going to be delivered most likely at the end of the summer. So it's a lot shorter of a lead time than what we have been doing, because we just needed to just catch up. The orders came in so quickly when we introduced this watch that we just weren't anticipating such an overwhelming reaction. And so right now what we're doing is we are basically fulfilling orders from last summer. But once we get those out the door, there still will be some left. I will stop the pre-orders or stop the ordering on the website once they are sold out, because we are only making 1,102 of these. But I can tell you there is at least 500 left. So that I do know for a fact. And the watches will be shipped out, I want to say like Tuesday. That's why I'm doing this today, is so that we can not delay at all and get these watches out as quickly as we possibly can to the people that have ordered them from last June, last September, last Christmas. Thank you so much for all your patience too, by the way. You guys have just been absolutely incredible in terms of just being with us while we're building this watch as quickly as we can, because we are manufacturing, we're doing the build here in the United States. I mean, you're looking at part of it right now. I'm doing it right now with you on live. Yesterday on our Instagram live, we did a whole bunch of the straps. Put the buckles on, put everything together for the straps. We get the straps made from Hadley Roma in Florida. So all the leathers and everything, those are all made here in the US. So this is a US made watch. Now, mind you, I will say it has a Swiss movement in it. So the movement is not US, but it is a very reliable GMT movement. And that's the only part that is from elsewhere. But yeah, I can't wait. I cannot wait to bring this back out. It says it all over everywhere that it's been sold out, that we've been out of it because we just didn't make them as I think when we first initially released it on opening week, we made 40, and that 40 went like that. So 1 year later, we are catching up. People wanted the watch. They wanted it in a lot higher demand than what we anticipated, and honestly, I think it's great because this is something that commemorates and it pays homage to some of the most amazing people that we've had in our history, in our country's history. The WASP, Women Air Force Service Pilots, were a force to be reckoned with. I mean, they really helped make our aerial efforts in the war just be as as strong as they possibly were. They were the flight instructors to the men. They were the delivery pilots. They were just helping in whatever way they possibly could within the realm that they were allowed, because of course the military was not going to allow them to go into combat. But these women were doing everything. They were flying P-51s and B-25s and just all of these incredible airplanes that you see in the museums today. And their story is not as well known. But they were very, very accomplished pilots. They had to figure things out. They had to test fly airplanes that had never been made before. I think a lot of the aircraft that were developed during the war, if you know about any of these, throw it in the comments because I'm really curious. But some of the airplanes that were completely developed as brand new airplanes for the war effort, they had the women test fly them and figure out how good of a plane it was, or if it needed re-engineering or whatever it was doing. And the men, some of the men were actually, they said we're a little afraid to fly it. They didn't want to fly a brand new airplane that hadn't been tested. So instead they just used the women, figuring that they would be expendable. And the women figured it out and said, hey, you need to change this here, you need to change that there. And then it was like, okay, well, if these women can fly it, well, then of course we can fly it. So that was one of the stories of the WASP that I heard from Nell when I visited one of the WASPs to give her one of these watches. And it's just really neat to hear some of the stories of these ferry pilots, of these non-combat pilots that tried for years during the war to be able to help and were finally allowed to, but the program was only from 1942 to 1944, and then they decommissioned and sent everybody home. And thank you for your service, that was a great contract that we had, because that's how they were a contract group. They were not veterans. They weren't recognized as veterans until the 70s, in 1977, so just absolutely crazy. But they did what they had to do, and they had skills to fly airplanes, and it made perfect sense for them to do this type of flying, because they knew how. These women were flying for decades before the war. They were doing the powder puff derby, they were doing aerobatics and exhibitions, and just making their presence known in the aviation world. And Amelia Earhart was very famous, Nancy Love was very famous. There were all these different pilots that were doing all these different things. Beryl Markham was flying over in Africa, and she was going to Europe and doing all these different flights that were setting records and being firsts of firsts. And so before the war hit, before World War II, these women had been flying for years. And once the war hit and everybody knew how much of an aerial war it would be, the women were like, okay, well, use us. We know how to do it. We know how to fly. And the military was like, yeah, no, we're good. But if you want to be a nurse, feel free, go for it. And they were like, no, we have more skills than just the nurses. So if you want to use us for flying, we can fly. We can deliver airplanes, we can train the men, we can do all these other different things. Allow us to, give us this opportunity so that you don't use men to do these things, to ferry airplanes and teach. And finally, after several years, Jackie Cochran convinced the military to do just that. And so 1942, the WASP program was a thing. It was a contract group from the military to this entity that they created, and they used women during the war to teach how to fly these airplanes, B-25s, P-51s, just incredible airplanes. And then in 1944, they said, okay, thanks, have a great day. That was it. And it just baffles me. So the fact that our first legend watch, this WASP watch, is made to commemorate them it just really warms my heart, just as somebody who lives in this country, somebody who is a pilot, a female pilot. I mean, the WASP really set the stage for what I'm able to do today. And it was just such a joy to make this watch. We designed it with the Women Air Force Service Pilot. It's the National WASP World War II Museum in Sweetwater, Texas, which is where homecoming is happening next weekend. So not this weekend, but next weekend. You're welcome to go. If you want to fly out to Sweetwater, Texas, you'll have an opportunity to meet the WASP. You'll have an opportunity to hear their stories, fly in old World War II airplanes. It's all happening next weekend in Sweetwater, Texas at Avenger Field, because that's the field that they used to train in. So if you're not doing anything next weekend and you want to head out to one of the most badass homecomings, military homecomings, that's completely open to the public, go check it out. And what we'll do is we'll have a lot of these pennies that I'm packing right now into these capsules. These come with a WASP watch, and there will be WASP watches there to help raise money for the museum. The museum is one of our authorized retailers, so they sell this particular watch, and we are getting ready to start just re-delivering, because we've been delivering, but we couldn't make them fast enough as the orders were coming in. We're not sold out yet, though. There's only going to be 1,102 of these WASP watches made, and once it's out, because there were only 1,102 WASP who went through the program, and once the program was decommissioned in 1944, that was it. That was all the WASP there were. So we are lucky to have a few wasps still living among us. There's less than 10. We've already lost 2 this year. They're all over 100 years old. And some of these women, it's just incredible how much energy and sprite they have. I mean, they're still telling stories and remembering details like it was yesterday. And so if you ever have an opportunity to hear some of the stories of the WASP or meet them like you can next weekend, then take it, because they're not going to be around forever. So that's it. I mean, that's kind of what I wanted to do today. Is I'm just showing everybody on live. We did it yesterday on Instagram. We're doing it today on YouTube. I'm packing up these pennies so that when the cases and the movements come in on Tuesday, we can just put everything together in the box with the penny, the band, get it out the door, get it to all the pre-orders that have been coming in, and then get it over to the museum before the homecoming this weekend. So thank you so much for joining me and hanging out with me on live. You guys were a quiet group today. I didn't get any comments, but if you do want to have any more comments on like what kind of videos you want me to put together, I'm going to be bringing back a lot more live. So don't think that this is the last that you've seen of me. I know I took a long hiatus, but we kind of did a big move. We're in a new facility. It's going to be pretty choice when it's all set up, and it's going to look really nice. So thank you so much. I'm going to finish packing up these pennies and get them into the WASP boxes, and I will see you guys on another YouTube Live. Bye.